Hekima University College is famous for many things, not least the quality of its students, some of its lecturers. But it's also very famous for its cats. You see them everywhere, especially outside the cafeteria or dining room or refectory at feeding time. They have no idea that their esteemed brother Joachim Zunde has gone, but other people have stepped into the lurch to feed them, and they are not silly, these cats. They know when they are going to be fed, so they gather. But at other times, I like doing a little circuit round the college grounds. At other times, they're not terribly well behaved. You know? They fight each other, spit at each other, have these unearthly screams or sounds that they make, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes just outside my window at 3 a.m. And the noise wakes me up, of course. So they're not really a sort of community as such. And I think they tear lumps out of each other as well. They fight like mad. You know. But we see them around and we get used to them and we kind of like them. But here's a question for you. Next time you have a look at one of these cats, if you had the choice, would you become a cat and become part of that feral community that they are? Would you do it? I wouldn't. Not on your life. Become a cat? No. And yet, if we go back to the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, the Divine Trinity looking upon the earth, looking at human beings, looking at them suffering, being captured by evil, they say, let us become one of those. Let us become a human being. With all of our evil and all of our wars and all of our suffering and all of our famine and all of our anxiety and the death that we have to face, all of us, they send the Son, the second person of the Divine Trinity. And that's like one of us becoming a cat. Do you see? We would not become cats. But the divine persons send one of their own number to become a human being, to partake of our life. And reflecting on that consistently surprises me. Why did they bother? Why did they care? Why not just leave us to our own devices? And we see the result of these devices every day. Whether it's in Kenya or in South Africa or in Mozambique or in Paris or in even London, or in chaos, famine, demonstrations, violence, all on the surface. Refugees always have been there. Displaced people, abortion, euthanasia, lack of respect, all of these horrible things going on. And yet, Jesus comes to help us. Jesus becomes one of us, like one of us becoming a cat. Doesn't use his divine power, doesn't call upon the legions of angels, just lives our life in its human nature, in its fullness. But he has something else. It's always useful to take stock during Lent of where we are, and this is the fourth week, as we know. And one can only have compassion at Jesus. We have this long discourse from St. John about Jesus saying, I am in the Father and the Father is in me. But really, what we want to grasp is a sense of the man himself. A sense of what he's going through. Yesterday, for example, in the Gospel, what did he do? Healed a cripple. Healed a cripple, a man who couldn't walk for 38 years. Take up your pallet and walk. And he does. But no. The scribes and the Pharisees don't like this. You have broken the Sabbath. You are not supposed to do anything on the Sabbath. And so they try not to tell him off, not to admonish him, not to give him lines or anything like that. No, they want to kill him. They want to kill him. Because he's challenging their core sense of identity. So one can only feel great sympathy with Jesus. He tries to explain to them what's going on. He gives them evidence. The healings, the raisings from the dead, the miracles, the power, the fact that he speaks with authority. He's got multitudes following him. He gives them a reason to believe, but they don't want to know. They don't want to see. They don't want to hear. They want to just stay the way they are, which is a kind of death, to stay the way you are. If you never change, you never grow. But there you are. This is what these people can be like. Not just then, but also now. And not just other people, but also ourselves. We can have a kind of living death of just going through the motions of life. I've seen it myself. I've seen it in myself as well. We have to break out of that. We have to break out. Which is why I said at the beginning of this Mass, Lent is actually life-giving. Because we can change. Our repentance means change. And change we must. To live again. To have the fullness of life welling up within us. To be joyful. To be compassionate. Watching Jesus is quite pitiful just now, but one also senses the inner strength of divine power that he has. He is not alone, he's with the Father, this mysterious, elusive figure who supports, protects, helps him. But he goes on his way. He performs the works that he sees the Father doing. He does them himself. Jesus performs the works. We see him doing those works, and we emulate that as well. We do those works. In this college we become learned. Our work is a learned ministry. Learning to help others, to help the poor, to help the ignorant, to help those who want to be educated. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing to devote your life to. And we sense in Jesus that compassion, and we ourselves ask for that compassion in our studies. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it for the glittering prizes. We're doing it because people need to know, need to be able to think, and need to be educated. Finally, there's one person that's just not mentioned around this time at all. No mention. But there they are, not doing anything, in the background, just watching and waiting. And that person is Mary, his mother. She's not alluded to in any of these gospel narratives at this time. But my goodness, is she aware of what's going on. From a distance, she's watching her son. And what does she do? She does what all mothers do. She lets him be, but she worries. She worries to death, and she prays, and she thinks he's maybe gone a bit mad, but she lets him be. And those qualities are ones that we have as well, because we see the problems in the world, we want to solve them, but we can't. It's too big, it's too complicated. We can make a tiny contribution, but we can ask God, who is underneath all things, to help things along, to help the people involved, the women, the men, and the children. And those qualities of watching and waiting and praying and worrying, Mary had those for her son Jesus. We too have them for ourselves, for the people of the world as well. We too have a Marian, contemplative dimension to our lives. This is also life-giving, because it tells us we are not in charge. We can't solve the problems of the world. We can make our contribution, of course, and we must. Peace and justice and the protection of creation. But ultimately, we belong to God. Ultimately, this belonging, this communion, is what gives us life. And since God has become man for us, we too follow in the way of the Son. We too take on his qualities, his spirit of compassion, of healing, and finally, of hope.